Have you ever really stopped to think about how a giant tree can grow from a tiny little seed? I mean, all it seems to use is air, water, and some sunlight. Well, today we are diving deep into the molecular engine that makes all of that possible. It's called the Calvin cycle, and it's this amazing process where plants literally build themselves right out of thin air. Just think about it for a second. Right now, as you're listening, you're breathing out carbon dioxide, and a plant can take that exact same invisible gas and turn it into leaves, a stem, roots, solid stuff. So how on earth does that happen? How does life take a gas and transform it into the physical world all around us? Well, that's the big question we're going to answer. So the whole story really starts with energy. During photosynthesis, plants are fantastic at capturing sunlight, but here's the catch. They store it in these really unstable molecules, ATP and NADPH. And when I say unstable, I mean their lifespan is measured in millions of a second. That's like trying to power your phone with a camera flash. It's just not going to work for the long haul. A plant can't get through the night on that, let alone an entire winter. It needs a better battery, something more stable and lasting, and that's where carbohydrates come in. Okay, part one, inside the green factory. To see how this all works, we've got to shrink ourselves way, way down. We're going deep inside a plant cell, into this tiny little green factory called a chloroplast. And we're headed for a specific spot, the stroma. That's this fluid-filled space where all the real construction magic happens. And this, right here, is the factory's main assembly line, the Calvin cycle. It is just a brilliant set of chemical reactions that grabs carbon dioxide right out of the air and uses that fleeting energy from ATP and NDPH to turn it into sugar. This is the solution to that whole energy storage problem. Now, you might have heard the Calvin cycle called the dark reactions before. Let me just say, that is a super misleading name. Because while it's true these reactions don't use sunlight directly, they are 100% dependent on the energy that was just created by the light-dependent reactions. So, no sunlight, the whole factory just shuts down. Simple as that. All right, let's get into the details. Part 2, a 3-step assembly line. The Calvin cycle is this really elegant and efficient process, and the best way to understand it is to think of it as a 3-step assembly line. We're going to follow a single carbon atom on its journey from the air into a building block of life itself. So here are our 3 stages. First up, you've got fixation. That's all about capturing the carbon. Then comes reduction, which is the big power-up phase. And finally, regeneration, where the whole factory gets reset so it can do it all over again. Okay, stage 1, carbon fixation. This, right here, this is the magic moment. It's the process of taking that inorganic CO2 gas and literally fixing it, locking it into a stable, organic molecule inside the plant. This is it. This is the crucial step where invisible air begins its transformation into solid matter. So, who are the key players on this assembly line? Well, you've got your raw material, the CO2. Then you have this 5-carbon molecule called Ruby P, which is kind of like the loading dock ready to accept a delivery. And then you have the master worker, an enzyme called Rubisco. This thing is a superstar, probably the most abundant enzyme on the entire planet. And its job is to grab a CO2 molecule and stick it onto Ruby P. So once that carbon is locked in, it's time for stage 2, reduction. Think of this as the supercharging station. That molecule that was just created, it's about to get a massive injection of all that energy that was captured from sunlight just moments before. And we are talking about a serious energy transfer. For every 3 molecules of CO2 that come in, the plant invests the energy from 6 ATP and 6 NADPH. It uses that power to add high-energy electrons to the carbon, which is what reduction really means in chemistry. And the result is 6 molecules of a really high-energy sugar called G3P. But, the process can't just stop there. For this to be a true cycle, the whole factory has to reset itself. And that's what stage 3, regeneration, is all about. It's about taking most of what was just made and using it to rebuild the starting materials. This ensures the assembly line can just keep on running, nonstop. And here's what might be the most surprising part of this whole thing. Of those 6 high-energy G3P molecules that were just created, get this, only 1 actually leaves the factory to become sugar. The other 5, that's a whopping 83.3%, they get recycled. They're plowed right back into the system to remake those Ruby P molecules, getting the factory ready for the next batch of CO2. Now, I want you to just stare at this number for a second. 6. Why 6? Because only that tiny fraction of the product leaves with each turn.
So it takes 6 full rotations of this entire cycle just to produce the parts needed for one single molecule of glucose. You know, the fundamental fuel for pretty much all life on this planet.
Okay, so let's zoom out now. We've seen the tiny mechanics inside the cell. But the real beauty of the Calvin cycle is how it scales up, connecting what happens in a single leaf to the energy flow of the entire planet. That one little G3P molecule that gets to leave the cycle, it's everything. It's the starting point, the fundamental building block. From that one sugar, the plant builds glucose for energy, cellulose to build its body, and every other organic molecule it needs to live and grow. It is the absolute base of the food web. And this brings us full circle to the great exchange of life. This table just shows the perfect harmony here. Plants doing photosynthesis, taking our waste, CO2, and give us the sugar and oxygen we need to live. And then we, through respiration, use that sugar and oxygen and give back the CO2 that the plants need. It's just a perfect closed loop. You know, this really drives home a profound idea. In nature, there's no such thing as waste. The CO2 we breathe out isn't waste to a plant, it's a resource. The oxygen a plant releases isn't waste to us, it's absolutely essential. Every single atom is just changing hands, moving from one form to another in a dance that's been going on for billions of years. So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. If every single atom is recycled, what does that really tell us about the connection between the air we breathe and the food we eat? I mean, a carbon atom you just exhaled might have been part of an apple you ate last week. And next week, it could be part of a brand new leaf on a tree outside your window. It's all just one incredible interconnected system.